You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Buddy, episode 49 of the Black Eagles podcast, creeping up to 50. This thing is becoming, foundational. We're setting ourselves in stone here, like the sword of Excalibur. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Anyway, we're back with another episode, and with me is Kaan Bayazit, my co-host from Belgium. Everyone, round of applause. How you doing, sir?
Considering I'm good, thanks. How about you, Sinan? How are your Knicks doing?
Yeah, we might as well just talk about something else. My Knicks are not doing very well. I'll tell you, sports, the thrill and enjoyment, the win and the lose, the lessons you learn from losing, but then also the thrills you gain from winning. Are not really translating these days for me because it's just a lot of losing in every way, in every sport. I mean, to be fair, I'm only focusing on two in my life. But yes, the Knicks and Beşiktaş are both doing very poorly.
And to lift the curtain a little
Why
bit,
do you ask?
The reason I ask is because Sinan has this theory, or has noticed a pattern supposedly, that whenever his Knicks, the New York Knicks, lose, Beşiktaş seem to drop points as well, either lose or draw. And I've been telling him for the past couple of weeks, it's just because we both suck right now. But Sinan, he's quite adamant about that there's a pattern there. So,
and obviously, I don't believe in magic or anything, but it's astounding. And it was more interesting earlier in the season when, at least Beşiktaş was winning occasionally, and it was, the Knicks had beaten the Celtics, which is a huge accomplishment for the Knicks this season, and it was the same on the same calendar day as Beşiktaş getting a win, and Beşiktaş had, I can't remember who we'd beaten, but it was actually, it was a good win for Beşiktaş as well. I think it may have been the Ankara Gücü win or something like that. And so, it was more notable when the Knicks would get their one win out of 7 games just on the same day that Beşiktaş would then get a win. Now, though, and Kaan, you already alluded to this point, both teams are just losing constantly. So it's not much of a correlation. I mean, they still correlate perfectly by all means. And so what Kaan is alluding to is that on the calendar here, the Hawks played the Knicks yesterday, and that was a pretty bad loss. I mean, it was for the Knicks again. They're at least, it looks like they're going to get a very high draft pick. If only Beşiktaş could get first dibs at a really good amateur player as a result.
I'd like a draft pick,
right? I think at this stage, right.
At a few, at 11 or so.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's dump our tinfoil hats and let's dig into it.
Back into it.
Beşiktaş also had a game this weekend on Saturday while we're recording this as well, but you might be listening to this later on, of course. Beşiktaş played Kasımpaşa, and like I had said last week already, Kasımpaşa has kind of been Beşiktaş's black sheep, so to speak. We had yet to beat them on the road under Şenol Güneş. I think it's saying something. Last time we won there was 2015. I guess that was under Slaven Bilic.
Wow. So Şenol Güneş is single-handedly bringing these second-tier Istanbul clubs into relevance. he's their biggest benefactor.
He does not have a good record against both Başakşehir and Kasımpaşa. That's for sure. But let's dig into it. Beşiktaş playing a difficult away game. Kasımpaşa having a great season, of course, with the likes of Mahmut Trezeguet and Mbaye Diagne, who was the league's top scorer headed into this game with 18 goals and 16 appearances.
Yeah, well, and don't forget their coach, their manager, Mustafa. Like an
Mustafa Denizli,
old friend.
But Mbaye Diagne would add to his tally because he would get on the score sheet. Spoiler alert. But the first half kicked off with a free kick for Beşiktaş pretty much. In the first minute, Beşiktaş won a free kick. Adem Laiç stepped up behind the ball, swings it in.
Nice
and Beşiktaş managed to score on that play, but the goal got disallowed by VAR for a handball from Dorukhan Tokus. Unfortunately,
the
Dorukhan
hand was on Lens, but the goal was scored by Dorukhan.
Yeah, Dorukhan scored the goal. Lens with the handball, but Dorukhan getting injured in that exchange and had to be subbed off.
So the goal was taken away, and Dorukhan.
Yeah, we lose Dorukhan after 5 minutes. Ryan Babel comes on to replace him, who just returned from injury. 6 minutes later, it's that time of the day. And Kasımpaşa, for the first time in the game, I think they stuck their nose at the window and immediately opened the scoreline 1-0 after 11 minutes. Lawrence Sadiku scoring his first ever goal for Kasımpaşa. I think he's been there for quite a while. He used to play for Mersin, I believe. But getting on the score sheet was a good goal from him. Not cleared, the ball not properly cleared. Sadiku on the edge of the area with a good volley. Beating Karius, and that's 1-0 after 11 minutes. Kasımpaşa would double the score a few minutes later, but fortunately for Beşiktaş at the time, the goal got disallowed in the 20th minute. Diagne scoring his first there, but that one wouldn't count. He got yellow carded for the celebration, however, as he pulled out a mask during a celebration.
Was it a gorilla mask? It was.
I'm not sure what it was. And Pavelka also got booked in that exchange.
That's so funny. For nothing, because they didn't get a goal either. So we lose a player to a non-goal, and they have two guys carded for a non-goal. Interesting.
Then around the 45th minute, 44th minute or something like that, there was a really good opportunity for Beşiktaş. I think it was Laiç who sent away Ryan Babel on the left. Babel threw, but I felt like he got mowed down by Veysel Sarı, who did not play the ball. You would think there would be a check from VAR there for a penalty. To me, that was a penalty, not given, no VAR check. And adding insult to injury once more, 2 minutes or so later, Mbaye Diagne would get his goal and double the scoreline in the first minute of first half stoppage time and put Kasımpaşa 2-0 ahead. And at that point, I think we all kind of thought that this match will be beyond us. 2-0 at halftime. Şenol Güneş making a substitution. Adriano got subbed off for Fatih Aksoy, I think just before halftime because another injury. So that's 2 substitutions due to injury. Second half, no change. Mustafa Pekdemek got on the score sheet in the 52nd minute. Really good header at the far post from Jermaine Lens cross, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the game really changed for a few minutes there, and Beşiktaş got really close to pulling it level on several occasions. I think Ryan Babel was the one who got closest.
Yeah.
But in the 75th minute, Kasımpaşa were awarded a penalty for a fall by Fatih Aksoy on Mbaye Diagne. Diagne steps up to the plate, scores his second of the evening, puts his total up to 20 goals in 17 appearances for Kasımpaşa this season. He already had a bunch of goals last season. He came in January last season for them.
I think we'll have to dedicate a talking point to him, actually. Let's
sure.
I actually want to ask you a question, but anyway, so wrap that up. Where
Just quickly, I didn't think this was a penalty.
I was going to say that's another talking point, which are the penalties called and not called. I think
this was another VAR decision. Cüneyt Çakır went to check and awarded a penalty. I did not think this was a penalty.
He called it to the booth. They called the penalty, and then he went and double checked it. So
yeah, I got scolded for saying it wasn't a penalty at the time, but after the match, some of our friends
came around
Yeah,
to your way.
got to see some different angles and also agreed no penalty.
See, I
haven't
didn't
seen
see
it
the other
back.
angles, and I actually thought it may have been a penalty, but we'll talk about that maybe at more length.
Regardless, that basically sealed the deal for Kasımpaşa in the 75th minute, 3-1 to them, and they would add another in the 83rd minute. Pavelka this time getting on the score sheet, and that's wrapped it up for them. 4-1, the full-time scoreline. Kasımpaşa beating Beşiktaş. Once more, that's not a rare occurrence. Unfortunately, they seem to, like I said, they are our dark horse. They are our black sheep. Not just Chanel. It's been going back some more years before that. We've struggled with them for many years already.
Well, let me break into stats while we're still on topic. As you said, they scored 4 to our 1. 16 shots by Beşiktaş to their 12, although they had 7 on target to Beşiktaş's 6. Possession was 61% to Beşiktaş, 39 to them. 476 passes completed to their 316. Beşiktaş actually passed accurately again at 85%. Kasımpaşa had 77% passing accuracy, so actually they were fairly efficient, especially relative to most of our competition thus far. Fouls, 15 committed by Beşiktaş to their 14. 3 yellow cards apiece, no red cards. As you said, 2 of those yellow cards were on 1 dead plays. That's weird. 6 offsides by Kasımpaşa, so not so much discipline up front perhaps, but despite having significantly less possession, I think that's a signal of perhaps Diane's intent, although maybe also lack of discipline to some extent. Again, we'll probably talk about him later on in the episode. Also, Kasımpaşa had 4 corners to Beşiktaş's 3, so another sign that despite having much less possession, they were still pressing to some extent, putting the ball in our side of the pitch and maybe even getting a little dangerous with it. So again, we have a match where Beşiktaş has most of the possession, passes fairly accurately, and I think that could be a reflection of, ever since Atiba's been inserted into the, starting 11 more, we've seen that efficiency go up. But again, Kasımpaşa did fairly well with their passing efficiency, which is actually much rarer. So that's testament to their ability, perhaps. And so, Kaan, what do you think? I mean, I think you'd probably agree these stats are not a very accurate reflection of today's match.
No, I don't think so. It paints a different picture, I think, especially with the passing accuracy. In the first half in particular, I really did feel like there were a lot of wayward, poor passes. People just booting the ball. It's kind of what we've seen all season, but cluelessly booting the ball upfield.
No, I think we clearly fluffed our stats up in that run of play when we were trying to equalize, when we were still in the game, and then probably even more so when we were out of the game and they were just sitting back and letting us. That boosted our stats, but that's also, as you'd agree, not an accurate reflection of what people would be watching out there.
I think we don't have these stats, but I think what would be more accurate probably is like the accuracy of passes in the final opposition's half and all that kind of stuff, which we don't really have at our disposal, unfortunately. Yeah. I think statistically, it's not a really good representation of this game. We were in it for a while. It was kind of a strange game because I really felt that we didn't play a good match, but it could have easily been 2-2. This game could have been different. I keep saying it every week. I'm a huge proponent of VAR, but it needs to be used properly, consistently. I thought there were a few moments today where I think the officials made mistakes. Like I said, I didn't think their penalty was a penalty. I think that Beşiktaş should have had a penalty in the first half for Veysel Sarı's fall, which to me was a fall on Ryan Babel. Veysel had no ball, seemed to clip Babel, and even if he didn't really clip him, he still just threw himself in front of him.
He overran Babel, and then to compensate, just tripped him. So I think that merited a call.
And the problem there for me is that there wasn't even a VAR check there. So I don't really know. I don't really understand what's the deal. So Kasımpaşa players protested and they checked. And we didn't protest enough, so they didn't check, or what's
that? Is that really what we're
what's
going
the criteria? What's the criteria there? I mean, I think there should be a check. There was clear contact between Babel and Faisal, so there should at least be a check. The referee should be asked to check that, right?
Sure. Well, and your real hot take is more on the second one, right? You don't think that was a penalty?
No, I didn't feel it was a penalty. I think, I don't know. I think Diagne just kind of backs up, and they both are going for, Fatih's jumping up for the ball. It was kind of clumsily, but I didn't feel it was a penalty.
Let's give some background context on your hot take here, because during the match in our group chat, which we often allude to, Kaan was sort of adamant that was not a penalty, and everyone jumped on him. I think I stayed out of it because I was still just sort of shell-shocked, but you were adamant that it wasn't a penalty, and everyone dogged on you. Oh, you got your Beşiktaş glasses on, whatever. And I was inclined to disagree with you, mostly also because, like, you had Ilke on your side, and Ilke is, he does wear those glasses. And so I was like, all right, yeah, he's probably just whatever, And the cynics were loud, as always. But sure enough, by the end of the match, when they started looking at it from various replays, and we're talking about the Fatih Aksoy call here.
Yeah,
a number of the guys abandoned ship and hopped aboard yours. So I actually missed the replays. It looked like a penalty to me on just from the normal gameplay, the first take. But apparently different angles have created different takes. So
yeah, and I haven't seen the different angles either. So I'm not gonna take a stiff position on this, but other people who have now watched it a few times that were of a different opinion as me during the game seem to have changed their mind on it. So I don't know. I haven't had the chance to look at it again since we're recording this relatively shortly after the game. But I didn't think it really was a penalty. And I mean, that's okay, fine. It's given. It's fine. We had the opportunity before that to make it 2-2, and if we would have been awarded a penalty, that could have been 1-1 because that was only a few minutes before Kasımpaşa doubled the score. So, despite the fact that we were poor again today, I do feel that we could have gotten something from this match. And why I want to put that in a little bit in the spotlight is because we finished the first half of the season now with 26 points out of 17 matches, which is...
why don't you do the table rundown?
Well,
we still have the rest of the weekend to look ahead to, but...
Yeah, but I just want to make the point that that's a very poor performance from us. There's
Absolutely.
No excuse for that. However, so many times we have had so many matches where things could have gone a little bit differently. Little details decided it. I do feel that tactically we have been poor all season, and for me that's fully on the coach. However, there's those little details that could have been different if we had a little bit more quality. I think the difference between us and Kasımpaşa today, we had Mustafa Bekdemek, and yes, he gets on the score sheet, but he really didn't.
He's the new Wagner Lev.
he really doesn't weigh on the defense. If you look at Mbaye Diagne, then how much trouble he creates just with his presence, his ability to bring the ball down, and he keeps he's even able to put players into positions for dangerous attacks, and he's composed around the area. He's a proper scoring target man, and that's something we lack. That's something that if we would have just had someone like that this season, I think we would have gotten a decent amount of points more. And the other day I was at a Christmas party for FC Afkikken, and I spoke to Jordi, and he basically said, he's a Galatasaray fan, Jordi Amali, and he basically said the same thing, like, regardless of how bad we are, and with he was of course talking about Galatasaray, I still think that if we had a proper striker, we would have been top of the table right now.
For sure.
And honestly, I think Beşiktaş are in a similar situation where if we had a proper striker right now, we'd probably be maybe not top, but really close to the top, because again, Başakşehir drops points this weekend, and it's like I've been saying for weeks now, they're good, but they're not great. I mean, they finished the first half of the season now with 35 points. That's not bad.
Let's all right, let's do this. Let's look at the table, because I think, and let me also use this as an opportunity to sort of briefly mention the fact that this is the last episode of the winter break. This is the last episode before Christmas, for example, and so first of all, Merry Christmas to anyone out there. I guess, like, to keep things lighthearted for a minute, but also, like, going into the break, that means this is our last episode before we've reached this hallmark point of the season where we can look at the table being, halfway completed. And of course, it's not, given the rest of the matches yet to be played, at least for us recording now. Maybe not quite for you listeners, but
I imagine this is probably going to be our final episode of 2018.
So I wanted to be the first to wish everyone a Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating out there, folks. I would like to be the one to wish you, a warm holiday season and all that. And with that said, let me look at the table. So, we're when we come back, probably before Beşiktaş comes back, but also after this weekend matches are completed, we can really give a full rundown. So far, where we land after today's match, and some of the other matches were, like yesterday, Başakşehir played, so some things are established there. Başakşehir sits atop the table, to no one's surprise, at 35 points after 17 matches played. Kasımpaşa has now slid up behind them into second place with 29 points, although Yeni Malatyaspor could pass them with a victory. They'd have 31 points if they can win. Trabzonspor, Galatasaray, and Antalyaspor could all be level on points with them at 29 if they all can get victories this weekend. And then behind there is a bunch of players that could theoretically pass Beşiktaş, a bunch of teams. Konyaspor and Sivas could both pass Beşiktaş tomorrow or Monday if they can win. So Beşiktaş could, and we have to look at the actual fixtures, because I think maybe some of these teams are playing against each other. But in theory, anyway, Beşiktaş could drop as far as it could be in 9th place as we go into the winter break. I repeat, 9th place.
Yeah, Galatasaray and Sivas are playing each other, so yeah. Malatya are playing away at Bursa. Antalya are hosting Fenerbahce on Monday, and then Konya are away at Akhisar also on Monday. So yeah, I mean it's very.
So the furthest we could drop is actually in 8th place. So the only real conflict there is Galatasaray Sivas. That would. So they're both playing to pass.
Yeah,
us.
but if they draw, they pass us anyway.
Not Sivas.
Aren't Sivas on 26?
That's why. No, Sivas is on 24 currently.
Oh, okay.
So they'd have 25 with the drop. So the furthest Beşiktaş can drop by the end of this weekend is into 8th place. Which, I mean, I don't know if as far back as I can remember as a Beşiktaş fan, I don't think I can ever recall Beşiktaş being in 8th place this far into the season. As an active member, as a sentient human being, like that's not too young to remember things. Can you?
Thinking.
This is the first in my life. How about that? You have a kid for the first time. You graduate from college. You see Beşiktaş in 8th place in the Super League, going halfway to the season. This is one of those once in a lifetime things that you always remember the first time. All right, now let's not hit the alarm bells yet. The weekend's not over yet.
What are you talking about? We've hit them weeks ago.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Beşiktaş could end the weekend in only 6th place. So, or not. It depends.
It doesn't really
Trabzon
matter
loses or Galatasaray, like other. Yeah, at this point, the bottom line is that Beşiktaş is 9 points out of first place. going into the halfway.
Which isn't
mark.
even that much if you think about it. If you think about how many points we have dropped, how many unnecessary points we've dropped, and the post-match stuff that we keep hearing from Shinal Gunesh, it's just the same every week, It's every week it's, well, I'm responsible for this and blah, blah. Well, I mean, if you believe that you're responsible, then do the responsible thing and resign. I think...
Step down.
That's it. So let's get into all that, I guess we should say. You were talking about Diagne as well. I mean...
Yeah, that's a talking point.
20 goals in 17 matches now. That's impressive. He is firmly on his way to shattering a bunch of records if he stays at Kasımpaşa. If he doesn't leave this winter, and if Kasımpaşa don't lose other key players, he could easily be breaking that 30 goal cap. He could be improving the record for a foreign player that Buffet Gomis set last season. I think he scored 29 or 30 goals. I could easily see Diagne get 33, 34, 35 goals. If he
could hit that mark by March, honestly.
Oh yeah, I mean, if he keeps going at this rate, he easily could. And
again, he scored twice against Beşiktaş, so far as not just getting those goals against. Not just getting those goals against Anadolu's sides, not just getting them on penalties, where he scored 2 goals in the course of play, smart goals.
Yeah.
The second one where he scrambled and just got past the defense and tapped it in and off a nice little cross from Ekube. I forget the other guy's name, but
Eduk.
Eduk. Yeah, that's what it was. I had the D and the K on the wrong part. Anyway, yeah. He showed a lot to me.
Got
he really showed
20
that
goals in 17 matches. 6 of those came from a penalty. So that's still 14 goals from...
play,
2 of them came from a free kick, I think. So that's 12 goals from open play in just 17 games. I mean, even if he had just scored those 12 goals in 17 games, it'd still be very impressive. Another hallmark for today is Mustafa Bekdemir is now officially our top scorer, and he has 5 goals in the league season.
Great. Yeah, our top scorer has 5 goals. And we're talking about a guy who has 20.
And
okay, so Kaan, this is the talking
2018
point with Diagne. It's 2018, and Mustafa Bekdemir is leading our team with 5 goals. I mean, okay. What do you think, man? Diagne, like, what are you now? Would you say let's go in on this guy? Is this a rant for you? Are you going to rant right now, Kaan?
I have a couple of things I want to rant about, yes. First and foremost, I'd like to say enough is enough. Shinal Gunesh, we love you. It's time to go. Hang it up. Go away. Go to the national team. I don't really care where you go. All respect to what you've accomplished with Beşiktaş, but it's been 18 months, it's been 1.5 seasons now that Beşiktaş have been utterly slipping in the league. Yes, there was an amazing Champions League run last year, but we've been slipping in the league for 1.5 seasons now. Last season, we got 30 points in the first half of the season, which was simply not enough. Now you even got less without a very hefty Champions League campaign and all that stuff. It's just not good enough. And yes, all the criticism on the board is also fair. They didn't get the players he needed and all that. But look at, for example, Yeni Malatyaspor. Do they have the quality that Shinal Gunesh has at his disposal? And they have 28 points now. They still have a match in hand, so they already have more points than we do.
I don't think that there's a guy on our bench who wouldn't go right into their starting team if he joined them. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much better Beşiktaş is on paper.
I mean, look at their. It's not like they have an impressive Mbaye Diagne up top. They have Boutaïb and
he's like sparky.
Yeah, decent enough player for a mid-table team, and they have your good friend Adem Büyük. But I mean,
I got my eyes on you, guy. I still got my eyes on you.
They don't have stellar strikers or anything like that. So yes, of course, it's like I said earlier. A good striker for us would have made a difference. We would have gotten more points. We would have been close to Başakşehir. But that does not take away the fact that tactically the team has simply not been good enough. Shinal Gunesh has not been able to turn this around. He has had not just this half of the season, he had last season too. He had an entire summer to prepare he didn't. He was just incapable of turning things around. It's too late. And I keep getting messages from people. It's all the board's fault. It's all the board's fault. It's all the board's fault. Yes, it's the board.
Mykonos.
It is the board's fault. They have their responsibility, but stop putting your head in the sand. Şenol Güneş does too, and so do the players. But Şenol Güneş, he has a huge chunk of responsibility here. The fact that the team is tactically failing, that is 100% on the coach and on his staff. Okay, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know how much input Guti has, so you can't really blame him. So to me, that's not really an indictment on him. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't get the job, because you don't really know what he's capable of yet. I think he should get his fair chance. But for me, the chapter Şenol Güneş needs to be closed now. Every week after the games, we hear the same story. Every time Beşiktaş drop points, it's, this isn't good enough. We will try to do our best to change. I am responsible for this, blah, blah, blah. But it's the same speech every week. It has no more meaning.
It really doesn't.
It's time to step down.
And he takes blame, but not wholesale. He's not like, I've done it again. I picked the wrong tactic. It's always this sort of like, we didn't respond well to to the VAR decision. Or come on, man.
What people need to understand as well is, yes, he has done a lot for Beşiktaş with getting us those 2 titles and getting us some really good runs in Europe. But Beşiktaş have also done a lot for him. He had never won a title before he came to Beşiktaş. Don't forget that. It's not just him doing us a favor.
The feather in his cap had been a 3rd place finish in the World Cup, which is no small potatoes or anything.
Yeah.
But it's not like a couple titles with a big club and a run in the Champions League.
He had a solid career going into his job at Beşiktaş, but this has really completed it for him. So it's not that we don't owe him anything. Beşiktaş don't owe Şenol Güneş.
Yeah, that's a weird mentality fans have, right?
He's had more time than any other coach would have gotten to right his wrongs. And after last season, I was fully on board. I was fully on board in the sense that, look, okay, he gets to have another 6 months. That's completely fine. He's had it 6 months now. We are out of Europe. We are out of the title race. I mean, bar any wonders, but if you look at how this team performs right now, it's very unlikely that we'll suddenly start making up a 9-point gap with Beşiktaş here. And if we do, that means Beşiktaş are slipping, and then there's still other teams that could be, up to the task.
And what's crazy is, imagine Beşiktaş had won, we'd be down at 11. And I mean, imagine we'd won, we'd still be down by 6. It's not like, you're back in it. You're back in it being down 6. And I mean, look, in some weird vacuum, you're not out of it behind when you're down 9. But if you look at how we've played, if you look at how our opposition is starting to play, particularly Beşiktaş here, they've really settled onto something that's working for them. And actually, the last couple of weeks they've started to stumble a little bit, but I think that's
but they had difficult fixtures. I mean,
exactly, they had difficult fixtures, and they're tiring. The break is probably well timed for them. They can get healthy again. Like it's not going to be better for Beşiktaş unless they do something radical during this break.
I mean, they faced Galatasaray last week at home, 1-1. Yeah, it's a derby for them too. It's a big game. I mean, that was Galatasaray's last chance, so to speak.
Yeah, that wasn't faltering. I mean, Alanya, but we stumbled against Alanya too. So
yeah, plus Alanya have been really good since Sergen has taken over. So they've been a formidable side. So again, they drop points there, but that's you can drop some points on the road, but not every other week.
Time.
Every
like middling opponent that you come across.
How many points have we gotten on the road? Like 8 or something? 8 points or I don't know. We got 2 wins one against Erzurum, one against Ankaragücü, and then I don't know, maybe a draw here and there. But it's been absolutely abysmal. Yeah. So now we're heading into this January transfer window, and I think some real big decisions need to be made right now in the coming week. the decision of Şenol Güneş's future needs to be made.
Well, so how about this? Here's a fun news item. So for about 5 hours, everyone was in a tizzy because Burak Yilmaz had signed on the dotted line. It was guaranteed he was coming. And then shortly thereafter, the board came out making a statement saying, no, we promise that's not happening. I, for one, I've said from the beginning, I don't want that guy around. I'm happy he's not coming. But that was an interesting little, moment there. I guess the only positive you could take from it is that there's, maybe some activity there. But what do you think? If we're not getting Burak Yilmaz, they know we need a forward. They've had meetings in London. If you were a betting man, Kaan, what do you? Because we know they're not going to do necessarily the right thing, which is to wholesale fix things, right? They're going to try to do some stopgap thing. What do you think that thing is going to be? Of course, it's going to come in the way of a striker, at the very least. What do you think? Who are we going to get? Diagne, we've talked about a little bit.
We need to keep in mind that there's elections coming up in May, so they can't not do anything.
Yeah, no.
The big problem is that we're pretty much out of the title race. We're out of Europe, so they can't really justify splashing a lot of money. So I think it's going to be a painful window where we're going to probably put some of our players out into the shopping window, so to speak. Hopefully get some buyers.
Another news item, Medel, in this regard. Do you want to maybe talk about that while you're on
I was
topic?
I was going to talk about it, but finish my
Sorry.
sentence first.
No, I'm giddy. I'm actually excited about this break, and I don't want to say much more because you're in the middle of your sentence, but I am giddy.
I'm kind of too. I'm relieved it's over.
Yeah.
I'm relieved the first half of the season is over.
I need a break. No, not.
And I really hope it's going to get better from here on out. But I think, like I said, big decisions have to be made. I think the decision on the coach needs to be made sooner rather than later.
First decision.
That should be made in the next 3 days, if I'm honest. And then you can look forward. Who's going to be the coach heading into the second half of the season? Is it going to be Guti? Is it going to be someone else? Then that coach can have his input on the transfers he wants. I think we're obviously going to get a striker. The question is, who are we going to get? Burak Yilmaz is the easy option because Trabzon want to offload him. So he's not going to be expensive in terms of a transfer fee. Because
salary won't be cheap.
Beggars can be choosers, so they have to offload him. They simply can't afford keeping him. So he'd be cheap, but he's also 33 years old.
And chronically injured.
He's going on 34. He has a chronic injury that's which basically just means it's a recurring injury. So he can basically play 6-7 games and then he's going to be out for a week or two. That's just the way it is because he has this pelvis injury that is literally a chronic injury.
Or they manage it and he plays every other match or something, but that's still not very helpful.
Yeah, but that's not right. I mean, we don't have that luxury right now. And maybe somehow he manages to squeeze out 17 games because we're not in the Cup, we're not in Europe. Maybe he's able to do it, but you don't want to commit long-term to a player like Burak Yilmaz at this point, I think. Also, you need to realize he's earning a lot of money at Trabzonspor. He may take a small pay cut, but he's not gonna play for 2 million less. He's on, I think, 3.5 million a year right now. The rumors were that he's gonna take a 2.7 million contract. That's not that much for a good striker, regardless of our financial situation, if you look at it realistically. But you have to look at all the other things, the byproducts of his potential transfers. That, like I said, injury prone, age, all that. So 2.7 million is a lot. I'd much rather see that money go towards someone younger. People have been saying for months now, Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, Beşiktaş, they have to look at Mbaye Diagne. They have to buy him. I've been saying, look, first and foremost, strikers who play for Anatolian teams tend to score more easily. There's been plenty of examples throughout the last 20 years.
You did the list last episode.
Yeah, I did the list last time. Quick recap maybe: Zafer Biriol, Makukala, Okan Yilmaz, Serkan Aykut. There's a bunch. Anyway, but having said that, I think it's very clear that Diagne is more than a Makukala was. Makukula was also very strong and all that, but Diagne also has good feet. He's intelligent. I think he is a player that could do well for a big team. And also,
Just don't
his
bring
age
your mask,
is important. I mean, he's excuse me, he's 27.
Yeah, it's a great age. It's like the
It's a
perfect
really
like a
good age, yeah.
Ljajic, Karius, right? That's the core,
So
That could
from
be
that perspective, he's the perfect type of signing you could get. But the problem is, obviously, you're going to have to pay a ridiculous amount of money for someone like that right now, especially at the middle of the season. I mean, when you hear Kasımpaşa are talking about 20 million euros, which they're never going to get, but supposedly they've had an offer of 12 million euros, which I don't believe either. I think that's just posturing. No foreign club is going to offer that type of money, I think, for a player from Kasımpaşa for Kasımpaşa. But despite that, his fee is probably going to be 7-8 million. So that's something that's obviously out of reach for Beşiktaş unless they offload the players. And then there's this rumor of Gary Medel potentially attracting some interest from the Premier League.
West Ham specifically. 7 million from West Ham. Come on.
Supposedly.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
I mean, for me, if that would be true, I'd sell him in a heartbeat.
I would have signed it yesterday.
I know that our fans are very fond of Gary Medel because he's a warrior, but you have to look at it realistically. He's 31 years old, going on 32. He's not really doing anything special. He's not lifting us up to a higher level. If Medel leaves tomorrow, we aren't suddenly going to start playing any worse. No, I mean, it's barely possible. I mean, he's not irreplaceable, far from, in fact. So for me, if it's an offer in the 4 or 5 million range realistically came in, I'd sell him in a heartbeat. And that goes for pretty much every 30-plus-year-old player we have. If a decent offer comes in for them, for example, Ryan Babel, who is on an expiring contract, if you can still get like 2 million or something out of that, sell him. Jermaine Lens is someone I'm more fond of than most people. Again, today I thought he was one of the players that kept going, even when things looked grim. But he's a player, again, if you get a decent offer and you can get most of your money back that you invested in him, which was like a total of 5.5, but I think we paid a transfer fee of around 4.5. I think if you can get around 4 million or something for him, that's another, clear sell. And then Quaresma, of course, I mean, with what happened against Malmo with that red card, he really seems to have burned his relationship with a portion of the fan base. I'm still of the opinion, I mean, everyone knows I like Quaresma. For me, he is a sort of a legend, for sure. Actually,
I think people get caught up in the moment.
But I'm not blind to his shortcomings. I still think he's a great player on his day, for sure. He can still have a role in the team, I think. But on the other hand, he's 35 years old. And if you can get a decent price for him, plus, I mean, he's a head case. There's no denying that.
But he was a head case
I think
from day one, before he...
Oh, yeah.
That's again, as you always say it. That's why we could get him.
You know that when you get him, that you're gonna get a head case type of player. But I think if an offer comes in for him, because he still has a contract until 2020, you can still get some decent money for him, despite despite his age. But he's still, the level he's at, regardless of his age. I think you can still get a decent fee for him from, for example, China, perhaps, or different, or the Sandbox or whatever. I doubt he'd want to go back there, but or even maybe return for a third stint at Porto, and you get 3 million for him or something, or 2.5 or whatever, or they let you have Brahimi for free because he's on the last 6 months of his contract, something like that, and you just do a kind of a swap.
I mean, I think the bottom line, though, and what you're getting at, and I totally agree, is we need to sell enough little pieces that we can maybe put together enough money to go after that striker who's not 34 and chronically injured.
The main thing is I think we need to start rebuilding, and I've not been with this whole, our squad is too old bandwagon thing. I don't feel that players like Adriano and Pepe at the time, and even Quaresma and all those guys were over the hill yet, despite their 30 plus year age. But if you look at what the problem is right now, our season is already lost. You can't keep going onward with 33, 34, 35-year-old players. We are clearly at a point now where we need to start rebuilding.
We need a direction.
So you need to decide who are you going to build around. I think obviously you want to build around Adam Laic, who I think nobody would argue if I said he was our best player right now, most talented best player. I think we still have to secure his permanent signature, of course, but I think that's the type of player you want to build around. He just turned 27. He can go for 3, 4, 5 more years easily. So that's a player.
The only arguments, I suppose, as far as the best player on the team now would be the less flashy, like, Vida or Karius, someone who's not on the ball much. But
I'm talking mainly in that offensive leadership role, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
I think he's the type of player you want to build around. You don't build around a central defender. You don't build around a goalkeeper. If you want to win the league, all that kind of stuff, then you have to build around a Snyder type, a Sergen type, Hadji, Laic, whatever.
Alex
for sure. Those types of players. And Turkey is still very old school in that we do still build around 10s. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a 10, but an influential player like that. So I think Laic is the guy you want to move forward with and build around, and then you need to have a good striker who he can feed, who our wings can feed. And I think, for example, an Mbaye Diagne would be a good choice because he's 27? Like I said, I think he's from 91 or something like that. So
he fits the window of Ljajic and Karius.
Yeah, similar
the
age,
core, even Vida to some extent.
Prime of his career. Perfect type of signing. Obviously, it doesn't have to be him, but that's the type of player you'd want to go after.
Yeah, perhaps there's another striker of that caliber in France somewhere, like on Rennes or.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of those types out there. But you just have to find them.
Exactly.
And then you need to look elsewhere as well. The center of our midfield clearly needs a quality injection. We've all been really impressed and happy with Dorukhan, but Dorukhan, he's going to be a very important player going forward, I think, but he's not going to be that patron in midfield, the guy who...
We need someone with the ability of Atiba to hold the ball and distribute it, but maybe in more of an attacking
We need
role,
a replacement for Atiba because slowly but surely I think we can see that his paint job is slowly starting to
chip.
Yeah, exactly.
Chipping away.
And we all love Atiba and I wouldn't mind him staying on for another year as a squad depth player, but it's painfully obvious that we need to find that Atiba replacement sooner rather than later.
I would love a gracious, smooth transition into coaching.
Yeah.
For Atiba, I would love for him to get,
for sure,
and maybe in the next summer to decide he wants to help, develop our youth academy or something of that nature. Work with young midfielders, defenders, whatever it would be. But okay, Kaan, look, I think we might need to dedicate a little bit more of this episode to talking about this break because this is what we're doing. I guess this is our winter break prep episode.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's close the book on today's match once and for all. Do me a quick solid. Who's your high and low light? Can you think of one? Let's go with low light first. That should be a little easier. Who did you single out individually?
I think it's tough to single an individual out. I think
maybe a unit of the team.
I think Atiba was poor today.
That poor that you more than anyone else?
Given what you'd come to expect, what you expect from him, okay. Yeah, I think he was poor. I find it difficult to single someone out. I think as a collective performance, it wasn't great. But like I said, it could have gone differently. Had some key moments gone a little bit differently. I think Karius was good, despite conceding 4. I think he was good.
Yeah, he was, and he was putting his heart into it, even when we were down by a lot. You could tell.
Yeah.
still had some pride, which you need, especially in that position.
I find it very difficult to call a low point and single someone out because I think it was a collective failure.
You have to agree there.
Tactically, again, I think...
Highlight? You have a highlight?
Yeah, like I said, Karius.
Okay, so you're going with Atiba.
Not much of a highlight, but...
Atiba and Karius. No, those are solid choices. And I think you can definitely see the logic in it. Let's see. Think about this. My low light, if I had to single somebody out today, Medel was pretty poor again, I thought. Pectamek was very lackadaisical. Despite his goal, there were a number of scenarios where I thought he was often, as the attack was building up from our end, he would often be like one of the 6th or 7th guys coming up. He would be behind the wings. He'd be behind, Ljajic, maybe a midfielder or two. And fine, he's tracking back a lot, because they're holding the ball deeper. And I don't know exactly the logic for why he's playing so far back, but he's our one striker. There's no way we're going to have a very effective attack if the one guy who's been given this role to put goals in the back of the net is playing in the role of a central midfielder. I mean, there were times where I was actually somewhat impressed with his ability to pass the ball again. I've mentioned this in previous episodes. He was playing in that central midfielder role. Like, I kind of wish Ozan was playing like that.
But you see that very often with teams that are struggling, where the striker drops down deep just to feel the ball. That's
you've talked
a
about
very
Diagne,
common
and
occurrence.
That's exactly what you need. Sometimes you need the discipline to say, look, if I do that, I'm not going to be in a position to effectively hit the counter. So
remember Negredo last season? He was doing it all the time too.
Yeah, and that was troubling. It bothered me. But so that was one. But also, like, if fatigue is an issue for Pectamek, because he was struggling towards, not even that late into the game, somewhat early into the second half, I noticed he was winded. Because, okay, fine, he's covering a lot of ground. But then you have to know your body, you have to know your limitations. You have to say, like, if I'm going to be too tired to be doing my job, then I have to be more conscious of tracking back, So
yeah, but
I can't, again.
He's in a difficult situation because the ball is barely coming into the box.
Well, but again, that's the discipline, It's knowing, like, I might not be, like, activated at this moment, but you have to. Look, I mean, we have one striker up there. That's the limitation of that tactic. So it just, and again, that's what
I don't think you can blame him
suggest. The overall blame lies in applying that tactic, And if you need to play that tactic, maybe Pectamek's not the guy to be playing up there alone. So whatever it is,
but that's a problem
like
we have had a lot under Şenol Güneş, where either your striker gets isolated up top on an island, or he feels inclined to drop deep and come feel the ball somewhere, and then he's not. That what we saw a lot with Cenk was he was constantly isolated up top.
Yeah. Because
he had the discipline to stay up there. What we saw a lot with
and Laren a little too when he was playing earlier on.
Yeah, but he's just.
Yeah.
He's probably
but he was on his island.
He's probably just afraid to come and meet the ball.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying as a dig, but I think that's literally. I think he wants to feel as little of the ball as possible outside of the box, which I don't blame him for. I mean, if that's not your strong suit, then I get that. But I think with Cenk we saw a lot that he was isolated all the time because he was often the only man in the box, and we were so predictable with our crossing game, which has been a problem. Okay, we haven't been playing that as much anymore lately because we don't really have a striker.
We're talking about these Şenol Güneş tactical problems dating back. Yeah. Now we're dating our problems back to the year. And
that's exactly my point. And then last season we saw it in the second half of the season when Cenk was sold and when Negredo came in. We saw often that Negredo had that same kind of inkling as Mustafa has to fall back to get to feel the ball. And of course Negredo was a far better footballer than Mustafa is, and we saw some really fun stuff, especially the Trabzon game comes to mind, where we saw some of Negredo's class.
Where he woke up.
But that's been a problem for Beşiktaş for a long time, is that striker up top either gets isolated, and then, and it's one of those things, like today, it just feels, if you watch this game, the Kasımpaşa back line, you never had the feeling that they had their hands full with Mustafa.
At all.
And then if you...
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and
that's where, again, I think if you have a guy like Diagne up there, you probably score twice.
If you look at the other side of the pitch, how our defense was struggling with Diagne and how he was weighing on the defense, that's the type of striker we've been lacking. And that's the type of thing that probably, if we would have had a striker like him, would have gotten us some extra points. But it does not excuse Şenol Güneş's ineptitude to tactically steer the team.
Well, and that's the problem with his tactics, is it's too reliant on 2 or 3 guys having masterful performances that sort of elevate the team above the deficiencies of the tactic, which you shouldn't be having to do as a player.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to rely on your tactic as something that you can.
Our first season
fall back on.
Under Güneş, we were a really strong collective, but we still had an amazing.
That was the Bilic thing. I still want to give that to Bilic. I think he built up that camaraderie.
Slaven Bilic definitely built the foundation for that team that won the title in 2016.
I still think that's a key component of the success, that he created the foundation.
When I say it's time to sack Şenol, people are saying, well, it's the board's fault, blah, blah, blah. Sacking him won't help, won't change anything. That's not true. That's the only thing you can do right now that has the potential of changing anything. I'm not saying
the thing is if you bring in a coach now, if it's Guti, whoever it would be, if they are doing okay with the job, if they show even just enough to say, okay, we're going to give this guy another shot, we'll keep him around, it gives you the consistency that you can then say, fine, like we can bring in a new board theoretically, right? If they lose the election, it's not such a big problem because we have this coach who started to establish. This second half of the season should be viewed as an opportunity to get the ball rolling, get some tactics installed, get the guys on board with this new, whatever it is that they're trying to move in, this new direction, and hope that you get the decision right now so that you can keep building that into the next year. But certainly there's no point just throwing away the second half of the season because, Şenol Güneş did something 2 years ago or whatever it is. And did something fantastic, did something excellent, won us consecutive titles. But
that's then and now is now, and right now he's not cutting the mustard.
This is football, man. It's not like
the one big objection I have
your family's photo album
for replacing the board is that, well, you can't just replace the board. It just doesn't work like that. You can't replace a board like you can replace a coach. And even you can't just replace players like you can replace a coach. So that is the easiest thing we can do right now. And something needs to happen. We can't just sit around for 6 more months, waste 6 more months, because that's what you're doing if you wait until the end of the season to part ways. You're just wasting another 6 months. And what's the point? You can use these 6 months to start building foundations.
This should be viewed as an extended summer, right? This is the extended training camp. Now is your chance. If you're 19 and think you deserve some sort of role with this club moving forward, now would be the opportunity, I think, for the club to say, show us what you got. You got all these 17 and 18-year-olds on the bench now, which I don't even fully understand. Like in Europe, there was some really wacky bench action there, but whatever, man. Toss them out. Let's see what they've got. Put them in the starting rotation. Don't just give them 10 minutes of the game that we're
I wouldn't necessarily. I think we see as well that there's a shortage of quality there. I think if I've been saying it for a while, Fatih Aksoy is not a Beşiktaş player. I think your eyes opened up on that today as well.
Yeah. I've never been a big Fatih Aksoy guy. I was more of an Alpay guy personally.
Well, there needs to be a certain level of quality there, but I think there's an opportunity now this winter break as well to bring in some new blood. Obviously, you're not going to be able to replace an entire team, but like I said, I think there's going to be some cords that need to be cut, some decisions that need to be made. Some guys if you can find buyers, you need to sell them off. and some new blood needs to come in now, and then obviously you continue that work in the summer. And I think that the board should probably also be judged on what they do now. If they bring in a good striker now and they bring in some exciting young players, I think that's mission accomplished. You can't really expect them to suddenly build a championship-worthy team that's going to close a 9-point gap in January. That's not going to happen unless they start spending recklessly, which we can't afford to do. But the main issue I have is Orman is the Orman board right now is if you grade them, I think they're failing. But the problem is who is going to take over in May. There aren't any serious candidates, and the candidates we're hearing from, the type of stuff we're hearing from them, that's not what you want to hear. I mean, I don't want to.
Someone talked about like bringing in Zlatan Ibrahimovic or something.
I don't want to hear about getting Zlatan Ibrahimovic because the guy makes 17 million a year or something. I mean, how could we possibly afford something like that? Even if you somehow work it out, whatever, some way, sponsorships, whatever, which is I don't think allowed by UEFA, but even if you somehow work something like that out, that is not the way to the future. That's not the right way. That's just a typical Turkish way of trying to short-term fix shit, and that's not what we need. We need foundational changes, and that's the only reason why I'm I mean, okay, this board is failing, but if they are going to leave, you need to have a good alternative. Then someone serious needs to step up. For example, an Ahmet Nuhcebi then needs to form his own party and step up to the plate, with guys like Erdal Turanoglu or whatever. But that's not happening. So realistically,
a lot can change because things are looking bad, and that could motivate a dark horse candidate maybe.
Yeah, I think if this transfer window is going to be a failure for this board again, then perhaps a dark horse candidate feels more confident and will put his name in the hat. But that's something that's a bridge we'll have to cross then and there. But for now, I think it's most important that some changes do happen. We can't continue going the way we're going. And I think it's clear to everyone, even the most loyal Şenol Güneş fans, that these is either going to be the end or it is final 6 months. So why prolong it? Why tie another 6 months to this? I mean,
why bring down the potential for the club to develop its next phase in the name of like just loyalty? And loyalty is great.
And it just tarnishes his legacy.
But at the cost of what? It's like I was about to use a really weird metaphor. I'm not even gonna do it. But yeah, we've definitely. I think it's time to take the warning signs seriously and just recognize that drastic measures are required. And the only realistic ones, like the thing is, like people, I'm much more aligned with people who think the board should step down too, but it's that, right? You say you want them to step down, like
that's just going to send the club into more chaos.
But that's my point, though, is that you can't fire them. They'd have to literally decide to do it themselves, and that's not likely to happen. Half of why a manager steps down is because he knows the pressure is going to come for him to do that at some point soon anyway, because they have the threat of being fired. The board doesn't have that, so you can ask for it all you want, but it's kind of like asking someone who's wealthy to like give their money away. It's not very realistic. So it's a lot of wasted energy and I think our fan base has proven to have a lot of energy to waste, perhaps, this season over some silly things. But now it's time to focus that on something serious. Let's take all that energy about like Babel dyeing his hair and let's put that onto, pressuring the board to make the steps that are required.
Yeah, and plus, I think we've seen this months ago that the Şenol Güneş story was at an end. It's pointless to prolong it any further. He's just tarnishing his legacy.
It's true.
That's all he's doing right now. There's no way he can win anymore. There's no coming back from this. Mm-mm. it doesn't matter which players he gets in January. It's over.
It is.
The spirit of the team is gone. Even if he gets Mario Gomez and a bunch of quality players, there's still that fundamental problem. You see that a bunch of the players have lost faith in him, or maybe have just lost interest entirely. I think despite the fact that Fati wasn't really good today, you did see that when he came onto the pitch that he did bring some enthusiasm and he had this one run up the field that really he was just running at Kasımpaşa's players, and then he passes the ball to Najib, and Najib intercepts it because we lost the ball, and he did kind of the same. Then he clumsily gave it away, but that's kind of more what we want to see, and that's something we've been lacking.
He wasn't Messi for a minute. It was kind of funny, but you're right though. He definitely brought some vigor, at least.
And that's something we need. And I think at the moment, if we still want to get something out of Oğuzhan Özyakup, for example, I think the only way to go, and I've been saying this for weeks, the only way to go is a new coach. Şenol and Oğuzhan, that's done. That's over.
I'll add another wrinkle, a little nuance to your point there, in that bringing in a guy would almost be unfair to that guy, because you can't. There's no amount of money that's going to motivate someone to take on the pressure of literally saving a club. That's what we're asking of someone to do. Please come here and score as many goals as possible to save us from ourselves. That's not fair. And you look at guys like Ljajic and Karius. Today, for the first time, I know they make millions of dollars playing a game that we all do for free on the weekends, whatever, that's fine. But I really felt bad for them. Because they came into the situation, right? This is a vital stage in their careers. This is the prime. They're 25 and 27, respectively. They thought they were coming to this club for a big opportunity. And what are they looking at ahead of them right now? It just looks like a disaster. They've come into chaos. And I think you can see frustration by Ljajic a little more now, and Karius as well, especially on dumb goals that he's not necessarily responsible for. And you get this sense of, I don't know, man. It's like, if there's not a culture change in a drastic change in how most of the guys who've been there for a while view what they're doing and how they're doing it, they're going to start dragging other guys down with them. And they're going to take the soul out of these guys who've played well thus far and who are still trying to cement their places in the side and give their all to whoever their manager would be, So for the sake of the older guys, I think if there's any hope that they're going to change their play, they need someone else to push their buttons, obviously. You've said it. I mean, we're flogging a dead horse now, I guess.
Yeah. I do think that for a guy like Ljajic, if he does get the clear indication on, look, we're building a team around you, I think that his motivation won't be a problem. I don't think that Karius has any motivational issues either, but like you said, you do feel kind of bad for both of these guys because they did come into this team expecting to play for prizes and to show themselves in the Europa League, perhaps, and instead, they've just been part of what's been arguably the worst Beşiktash that I can honestly remember, and I'm not talking.
Right, we've already quantified it, right? Neither one of us has ever experienced this kind of a position. Late in the season.
We've seen less quality perform a lot better.
Yeah, our Feda year, we were doing better than this at this stage.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that was just a lot more excitement in that team, and there's just very little of that right now in this team. There's just a lot of complacency and uninterestedness, and a coach that's clearly checked out. I think he's checked out. I think his mind is also on his next chapter, which is going to be the Turkish national team. So I think, just out of respect for Beşiktaş, he needs to step down. He needs to, keep the honors to himself. This is now the perfect time to do so. We're halfway. Just step down. It's enough. Don't tarnish your legacy any further.
It's hard to argue with that. Well, so all right, let's set up our break then. Let's get out of here. We have, I think, 3 weeks off now? Is that accurate?
I think.
Let me pull up the schedule.
I think we start again around the 22nd of January, or something like that. I think it's when the league starts again. I know there's a bunch of cup games around the 15th.
The 24th.
Yeah.
Monday
So,
is the first.
so it's about a month from
Oh, I'm
now.
sorry. No, the 20th. Pardon me.
Yeah, so about a month from now, the league will pick up again. In the meantime, we're going to have the January transfer window. A lot to look forward to there.
Yeah, well, that's almost even a busier season episode-wise
for sure.
sometimes, because you have to pull up a
maybe
player.
we'll get some
analysis.
guests on, some special guests on to talk about perhaps the first half of the season, their views on.
I think we've
what we
got to
should
bring
do.
John Okar back if we can.
For sure, I was thinking exactly that, to bring John back. Maybe have Dennis on or Emra or some of our friends. And then, of course, depending on who we're going to be showing interest in this January, we'll bring some experts on to whoever, let's say Alexander Mitrovic. We'll have Sonia back on. Obviously, we're not going to be getting Alexander Mitrovic, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, where did that go? Maybe if we go for like that Muhammad guy from, what was it, Sarpsborg?
Mohamed Rashid, yeah, for sure. Then we'll have Ben back on.
Yeah.
But I'll hopefully be able to find some sort of expert on that player, whoever we're going to be interested in. We'll bring that on. But I did say earlier that this is probably the last episode for 2018. But maybe if there's a Sinal Gunesh departure, we might be
obviously
back.
if there's big news, we'll be back.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
So hopefully we'll be back midweek.
Yeah, sure.
But most likely, I think this is going to be it for 2018.
Yeah. And it's been a great year, guys, ladies, everyone. It's been a fantastic year getting to know a number of you folks, interacting with the Beşiktaş community, bringing you guys news. It's been an honor and a pleasure thus far, and we hope 2019 brings better tidings, get better news to talk about on this podcast, better results. But I don't know what.
That's so boring.
I feel like we're missing something. I feel like we're missing some information. Well, there is some stuff to talk about. All right, we do have some after the beeps today. Before Kaan does the final takeout for 2018, maybe, asterisk. We have to say that Evran, our old friend, is back to talk about today's match. And then I'm going to be covering for myself a little bit by doing a special little After the Beep segment. Going back a week, I want to get some of Emre Hasturk's sounds. Now, he was not late with his entry. He did a fantastic job of getting recordings from the Trabzonspor match last week. And I was going to do an episode midweek, but it was a crazy week, actually, for me. Very busy. So I thought I could tack those on to the After the Beep this week, assuming since it was an away match we weren't going to get anything. But then Evran volunteered himself, so we're going to have a special After the Beep. But yeah, tune in, and for the last time this year, if you need to get that, whenever you have the urge, you can turn this episode on, go to the end, and hear the stadium sounds. Live the life of a Beşiktaş fan via us, and get yourself amped up for the coming second half of the year.
Just got a hot take from one of our twins here, Özcan Uğur. He just sent me a message. He said, Lige isn't good enough either, mate. He ghosts far too much. I'm sorry, but that's...
Come on.
What do you expect him to do with this team around him?
Özcan, we're going to have him on, I think, in the new year during this break to talk about... I want he and his brother to like, no holds barred. I want them, because they've had some things to say about, like, Karius and Liais, a number of guys. We should have them on. We should do like a round table, maybe.
Should we have some audio description then for people who don't understand Scottish?
Yeah, maybe we need subtitles or something. Or I'll like auto-tune it. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, it should be a fun break. I think we're gonna actually probably
plenty to talk about.
It's actually
for
the podcast. It's probably gonna be. This is our season. It's during the transfer seasons that we really shine and get a lot of material and get to bring on guests. So
that's
actually very excited.
That's where we get our best stuff out. Match reviews. Yeah.
You know what? This whole first half of the season, we keep saying, "Oh, if this happens, maybe we'll still have a shot. If that happens," I think we have a very clear idea now of where we are and what we need to do. And so it's going to be a checklist type of scenario. Did these people do what they're supposed to do?
So, Sinan, I just want
done.
to spring something on you. Imagine if we had beaten Alanya, Trabzon, and Kasımpaşa. If we got 9 points out of those games.
Don't do that to me, Kaan. We'd be tied for first place right now.
No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't be tied.
Oh no, because we get a draw against.
We'd be like 2
points back. No, maybe
we'd
3.
be 7 points. We'd be 2 points out, I guess.
Yeah, 2 points. Don't do that to me, Kaan. Come on, man.
No, that's the thing for this season. Despite the fact of how bad we have been, we could easily still be at the top of the table right now.
If anything, that's insult to injury, because it's like, no, even despite how bad we've been, the rest of the league has been bad enough that it just highlights how, like, we didn't have to be very good. You know, look, we could have just been.
Had the boards allowed Wagner Love to leave on deadline day, join Galatasaray, and sign Burak Yilmaz, we'd probably be very close right now.
I don't know. I'm still not putting my eggs in the Burak basket.
No, I'm not a proponent for getting Burak, but clearly he would have done so much better than what we have running up there right now. There's no denying that. I mean, he did score 23 goals last season.
Yeah. I think he had like 7 goals this season so far, which is better than Love.
And he's barely played.
Yeah. But he was injured for a big chunk of the first half of the
He's
quarter.
Been injured, and he's been left out of the squad for the last couple of weeks. I mean, he played maybe 11 games or 10 games or something, scored like 7 goals. So, I mean, I'm not saying he would have... come on. Even if he would have gotten him, I think we would have been better off right now. And I'm not saying that would have been the right thing to do, because obviously he would have brought his steep wages with him. But then, I mean, I think they knew that Alvaro Negredo was still going to leave. So not to bring in a replacement was just silly.
Bad.
So obviously the board has so much responsibility as well. But Sinan Güneş does too. And I think people need to take their heads out of the sand. And because that's just these loyalists to Güneş who are unwilling to see his faults, which are painfully obvious and have been painfully obvious for a long time, not just this season. And that's something that needs to change. People need to stop. I'm not saying that our fans need to boo him, not saying that they should insult him, but we need to respectfully ask him to leave.
Exactly.
And we need to make it clear to the board that we love and appreciate everything he's done, but that it's time for a new chapter.
Yeah, for the club.
With all due respect.
Yeah. So Kaan, tell them where they can find us on Twitter.
Well, you can find our Twitter handles in the podcast description.
That's right.
For sure. Also, for any new listeners from perhaps the subsection, Beşiktaş subsection on Reddit, if you guys have any contributions you want to do to the podcast, questions, or you want to send in your audios or anything like that, you can WhatsApp us at +324 9933 1684. I'll repeat, +324 9933 1684. You can send in your audio messages there if you want to submit anything for after the beep of any of our episodes. If you have questions you want answered in any of the upcoming episodes, you can obviously send in questions as well on either Twitter, Reddit, or whatever. On Reddit you can just go to the... Yeah, on Reddit you can just go to the Black Eagles podcast topic under the Beşiktaş subsection on Reddit. On Twitter you can reach us at Beşiktaş_international or at Eagles_podcast, which you can also find back in the description of this podcast. So yeah, I mean, we've got a whole month coming up. Beşiktaş won't be here to keep us happy, but we will most definitely be here. The Black Eagles podcast won't be going anywhere. We'll be
transfer
back
rumors. We'll be here to warm our fires.
Exactly. we'll be for a month. We'll be talking about fun stuff, and then we can get back to all the misery.
Yeah, honestly, the transfer season might be more exciting than the season was.
For sure. So definitely stay tuned. Keep refreshing that feed. The first episode will most likely come after New Year, but if anything big changes, for example, a coaching change or a coaching departure, we might be back a little bit earlier.
Or like a pre-signing on a contract of someone, or an extension maybe. Who knows?
But if this is the first time you listen to our podcast, please hit that subscribe button on iTunes, on Google Play, on Spotify, or whatever you might be using to listen to our podcast. It's completely free of charge. Only costs about 2 hours of your life every time you listen. So that's it for me, Kaan Bayazit. So I'm going to leave it to my co-host Sinan Schwarting to take us out.
Go Beşiktaş! Let's do this. Let's make some moves. Let's plant the seed.
It's the season to be jolly.
And yes, Merry Christmas. Ho ho ho. Happy Hanukkah. Is there a Muslim holiday? Yeah, right.
Asking the wrong person, man. You know, you know I'm not really religious.
Happy New Year.
Hold me
Hi, my name is Evron. I'm a Beşiktaş fan based out of New York, and I'm going to talk about the Kasımpaşa game. Overall, I would say I'm mad, but the way the season is going is just didn't really even expect to win going into it. You know, the way things are going, it's kind of the state of the club now that an away game at Kasımpaşa almost would have been like a miracle to win. Overall, 4-1 was extremely harsh. It was like just the way the refs went, VAR, missing chances, etc. Makes it look worse than it was, but we never really got in there to win. We were just, if anything, playing for the tie. You know, at the start of the game, if that goal stands, if Lens doesn't slap the ball to Dorukhan, and then he doesn't kill his knee, maybe the game is different. But I think that's where things went wrong, whereas subbing on Babel was, I mean, maybe not the wrong decision, but I think we could have had someone better, because I don't think Babel's the type of player that changes the team. Like, if the team is good and he's good, then it works. But if the team's not good, I don't see him as the type of guy to lift the team up. And I think for Dorukhan, I mean, the only two players on the bench that we really had that I think have that potential is Oğuzhan and Quaresma. And would have been Tere maybe a few years ago, but not anymore. So I think that was potentially a mistake. Just overall in the game, we didn't really have a lot of ideas. Like, we were relying on Yajic to get stuff done, but he's not that type of player, you know. Like, he's really good. He's a quality number 10, but I don't see him as the type of guy to really like take the game by the horns type of player. We lacked that deep playmaker that we relied on in our better years, but that used to be Oğuzhan. We used to have much more creativity deep, and we're better in possession. With the Atiba Medel midfield or the Atiba Nedjit midfield, whatever the hell we had, it's just not, it doesn't work, you know. It's not good enough to win the title. And then up top, we still have issues. I mean, even Pektemek was one of our better players, which I think should be a sign of how bad things are. Because Pektemek is not really a top 5 team level player. You know, Lens, he was okay. He didn't really do much. Just the midfield was poor. I mean, like things. I mean, I want to like defend Channel a little bit. Is from the beginning, he sets his game out. You know, one of his players is hurt within the 3rd minute, and then there's another injury before halftime. We get a bizarre VAR decision against us for the penalty, goal disallowed, stuff like that. That just wasn't in our favor. Our penalty wasn't reviewed when Bobble went down. So for those regards, he was unlucky. But I still think there's a lot to think about the team selection. And this was a real key period of the season, Last Europa League game, and then Trabzon home, and Kasımpaşa away. If we won those 3 games, we'd have been in the Europa League knockout rounds, and we'd have been in 2nd place clearly. Probably, 3 or 4 points behind Başakşehir? So this was a hugely important 3 games to really define what our winter transfer window is going to be. Now, I don't know who the hell is going to come. I mean, the board just seems kind of... You're hearing Burak and just kind of like lazy names being thrown around, not any creativity. So something has to change. A new player has to come. Someone has to leave. I don't know if it's a player or a coach, but it can't keep going the same way. Last year, we saw this, but I think we had the players that were able to change it. We always had Talisca and Quaresma on the field, and if one of them had a good game, it was enough because they had the quality. Talisca would just kind of ghost the game, but then still score. When Yajic ghosts, he really ghosts. He doesn't ghost and then score a banger. He either plays well or he doesn't. And that's basically what we have now. Is we don't have the quality to push through our deficiencies as a team. It's just really disappointing. I'm disappointed. But it's, when you watch the game now, it's not even exciting anymore. It feels almost like we have like a Trabzon mentality to say we should be winning, but you don't go in anticipating a win anymore. But that's really about it. Not much else to say.
Hiçbir şeye değişmez. Senin sevgin bu dünyada. Beşiktaş'ın hayali. Koy şu Trabzon'a, koy Trabzon'a, koy şu göt veren Trabzon'a. İnşallah. Trabzon şampiyonu. Sen siyah, sen siyah beyazsın. Bu alemin kralsın. Haydi Trabzon şampiyonu. Sen siyah beyazsın. Bu
Hey guys, sorry for the voice. Just trying to get out of the stadium. It's packed over here. We deserved more than a draw. I mean, just the whole gameplay, what the ref did throughout the game, the fact that Trabzon players wouldn't get up on every foul. We deserved way more. But there's a lot to talk about. Why did Necip start on the right back? Why did Quaresma start? What is Yajic doing? And a lot more, but not today. Just think we deserved a lot more. Anyways, hopefully this game will get the team back on its tracks. Cheers, guys.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.